In this lecture, I'm going to talk about the microscopic structure of the compact bone and chemical composition of the compact bone. Okay, these are the two items we are going to study for particularly the lecture part of the course. In the lab, we already know the 206 bones, and for many of the bones we learned marking. So we focused on the identification part of the bone. In this case, we are going to look at the microscope, which we have seen it under the microscope, but let me explain a little bit in detail. Okay, so let me get the PowerPoint slide for this first, and then we can go from there. Okay, so before understanding the microscopic structure of the compact bone, what we need to understand first is that bone is a connective tissue. Okay, and we learn in the connective tissue that in connective tissue we not only have the cells, but we do also have some non-cellular material known as matrix, such as, easiest example, blood is a connective tissue. So in blood, we have blood cells like RBC, WBC, platelets, and we had a liquid part, that fluid part, we call them blood plasma. So blood plasma is the non-cellular part, and the blood cells are the cellular part. So this non-cellular part called matrix, okay? So in case of bone, is the very same thing. Bone is a supporting connective tissue. So they do also have a cellular part and a non-cellular part. So let's focus on the non-cellular part first, which is the matrix. So it is chemicals, all the chemicals. So we have two types of chemicals in that matrix. So what do you have? We have organic matter and we have inorganic matter. Organic matter such as like carbohydrate, proteins, these or their complexes. And inorganic matter such as salts for lots of ions like metals, and so calcium salt and etc. So we are going to look at some inorganic salts, we are going to look at some organic matter. Okay, so let's first precisely mention that we have less organic than inorganic matter. We have less organic than inorganic. So we have 1/3 of the matrix is organic, and we have 2/3 of the matrix is inorganic component. Okay, so what are the organic matter? Organic matter, which mainly is synthesized by osteoclasts. Just remember that word right now. I'm going to come back to detail what osteoclast is. So they are collagen, okay, carbohydrate protein complexes, a lot of them, such as glycosamine glycans, proteoglycans, and glycoproteins. So these are carbohydrate protein complex, along with collagen is one of the main protein that together make the organic matter. Inorganic matter, on the other hand, maximum inorganic matter or majority of the inorganic matter is calcium salt. What kind of calcium salt? Calcium phosphate contribute 85%. So crystal of calcium phosphate, sometimes known as hydroxyapatite. So hydroxyapatite, that's the word right there. Hydroxyapatite is basically contribute to the 85% of the inorganic matter, and another 10% also calcium salt is calcium carbonate. Okay, that's why in childhood we know that parents or guardians, they always talked about drinking milk, because that's a huge source of calcium, and we learn in the younger age that drink milk to build your bone, meaning those calcium salt is required for making your bones. Apart from that, there are some other minerals such as fluoride, sodium, potassium, magnesium. All these are also required. So mainly calcium, but then mainly calcium salt and some of the others. Now, these are the matrix part or the chemical part of the bone. So these are the chemical composition of the bone. So later on, I will explain how exactly it formed. So basically, I'll give you an example to understand this chemical composition of the bone. and then we'll proceed to the cells. Okay. So, some things are sometimes in chemistry, like some things are very strong, but at the same time, they are very brittle. For example, glass, believe it or not, glass is an extremely strong chemically. That is why you cannot cut a glass with a steel knife. So if you take a steel knife, you cannot just cut a glass. You can break it. That's different. That's brittle. Glass is brittle. But if you want to cut a glass, you need a diamond knife because diamond is stronger than glass. I'm using the word strong in a different perspective, so pay attention. So glass is very strong, but at the same time is brittle. So chemically, bone, you have to think in that same perspective. Like it is strong, but it can't be that brittle. So the question is, how do we reduce the brittleness, so-called, of the bone? Because think about how many times you fell down so far in your life. From the childhood, maybe 5,000 times, but it didn't break your bone 5,000 times. If you're lucky, probably none. The reason is your bone, they're strong, but at the same time, they can absorb some shock. So they're not brittle that much. So what component of this chemical make them strong and what component make them flexible, in other words? So in order to understand that, let me give another example. Okay, so you understand brittleness. Now I'll give you another example to understand. Like, when they make the sidewalk, concrete sidewalk, sometimes when they make the concrete sidewalk, you will always see they just don't pour concrete because concrete is extremely strong. We know that, but they just don't dig a little bit space and pour a lot of concrete in it. They don't. What they do, they put some steel framework first, so called like a rebar. Those steel framework they put, and then they pour concrete on top of this. Now imagine this. So the steel framework, they're offering the flexibility of the sidewalk. And that poured concrete, when they cured completely, they are the strength. So concrete is very strong as like glass, but they're brittle. So if you just pour concrete in the sidewalk or your driveway, if it cracks on one corner, the whole thing will crack. But when you put the steel frame, they will not go to the whole thing. They will crack because the steel, they'll crack from a point A to point B, but then steel will absorb that shock. So in your head, just try to imagine. It's not accurate, but try to imagine it this way. The steel in the driveway giving the flexibility to the driveway or the building when they're making the huge building. And the concrete is offering the strength. Now, in bone, the organic matter, the protein component, they are the steel bar, for my example. And this inorganic calcium salt, they're the concrete. So steel offered the flexibility of the bone in this case. Steel means organic matter. So the proteins, they're offering the flexibility of the bone. And the inorganic matter, the salt, they're offering the strength. I'll give another example to illustrate that. So for example, if you cook some like chicken, okay, if you cook chicken with the bone, and regardless of what kind of cooking recipe you use, you're probably using some acid like lime, lemon, vinegar, tomatoes, some kind of acid in it. So when you're putting acid, what acid does to the bone is they will take away salt from the bone. Acid takes away salt. So they will take a salt from the bone. So if the salt is gone, if the calcium salt, let's talk about that, if that's gone, so your protein is more, so your bone becomes slightly flexible. So in a cooked food at the end, it's not that you should try, but if you try even to bite on a bone, you can sometimes, okay? On the other hand, if you do like my style of cooking, so you take a chicken, I don't care about the recipe, I just put on a barbecue grill. So there's a lot of heat, a flame comes, and the chicken is cooked. But at that time, see that heat, what they do directly to the bone, they denature the protein. We learned that in a long time ago in bio class, that heat denature protein. So the proteins are denatured, the flexibility of the bone is taken away. So now if you try next time in the barbecue chicken or any other meat in that, any other bone in that fat, you will see the bones become like very brittle, but extremely strong. You cannot bite them because their flexibility is gone. So that's the chemistry of the bone. So once you know the chemistry, so one more time, the organic matter, the proteins, they offering the flexibility. In other words, inorganic matter, they offering the strength of the bone. Okay, so they're both types of chemicals that together called matrix. In case of bone, 99% of bone material is matrix. Now we'll look for the cell. So in the cell, there are four principal cell types in the bone. Osteogenic cell, or is also known as osteoprogenitor. Number 2, osteoblast. Number 3, osteocyte. And number 4, osteoclast. So for now, forget about osteoclast. The last one, just we'll talk about that. So now we're going to focus on 3 things: osteogenic cells, or osteoprogenitor, osteoblast, and osteocyte. Now this is very important to understand. This is not 3 different cells in that person. This is like a cells of 3 different times. What does that mean is this. So let's say a baby is born. So that's osteogenic cell. Then the teenage, when the baby is growing up, that's osteoblast. And once the baby is mature adult, osteocyte. Osteocyte is the mature bone cell. So in the bone cell, in the stem cell of the bone is osteogenic cell or osteoprogenitor cell. Those are the babies I'm referring to. Then teenage, the developing bone cells, those are osteoblast. So those are developing bone cells. That bone cells are developing. Okay. And once they mature, we call them osteocyte. So if a question is asked like, what is the mature bone cell? You have to say osteocyte. What is the developing bone cells? Your answer should be osteoblast. What is the stem cell? Osteogenic or osteoprogenitor cells. Okay. Now, initially, look at the slide. So osteogenic cells looks like this. Now, slowly, these osteogenic or osteoprogenitor cells, they're growing. This is osteoblast. And then finally, once they mature, see, they have a lot of extension-like structure. So they become like this. So this is osteogenic cell. That's osteoblast. And that is osteocyte. Okay. Now, imagine like I am myself, like I am an osteoblast, meaning I'm developing. So when they develop, what they do, they secrete, imagine this, they secrete glue-like material, which is those protein material surrounding them. And those glue-like material, they attract all the calcium salt. So basically they're putting a steel framework surrounding them, and then the concrete, which is the calcium salt, is poured. So at the end of the day, like at the end of the development, they have the concrete base surrounding them. So they're confined in an area. They're mature, but now they have no room. They don't divide. That's how the bone cells looks like. So if I go to this, I'll describe this picture later on. If I go to this particular picture, so you see this space, pay attention and look at the picture detail. This space here, the space is called a lacuna. The word lacuna means space. In that space, who reside in that space? Osteocyte, the mature bone cells. And this yellow material right here, that's a concrete that they created surrounding them that I just explained. So using the organic and inorganic material, they created that concrete surrounding them. So basically, when you're looking at a compact bone, this is how they look like. They look like a compact bone. They have all these units. Individual, each unit, like this unit, like each unit, individual, this unit is called osteon. So if you look at one osteon, this is how they look like. This is one osteon under the microscope, like a regular microscope in the classroom. This is like a electron microscope, obviously, the bigger picture. This is how they look like. So this is osteon. So this is osteon. Now, in the osteon, in individual osteon, at the center, this canal, this is called central canal. Central canal, or some book will call it like Haversian canal, name of a scientist, Haversian canal. I mentioned that name later on in the slide. So that's at the center. Now, when the canal is there, in that canal, you have the arteries and the veins and the nerve. Okay, so sometimes some book refer to as like a nutrients channel, because that is the one that's giving the nutrients to the bone cells. So that's the artery and veins. And then if this is the artery and veins, like the central canal, like this, let's say this is the canal. So they are going to, the lacuna, the space is going to be surrounding them, like in a circular fashion. So if you look at this particular slide, you can see from here, I'm going to look from here. So this is the central canal. This is the lacuna 1, lacuna 2, lacuna 3, 4, 5. So they are surrounding in a concentric ring. So 1 ring, 2 ring, 3 ring, and so on. So they are called concentric ring structure. Okay, so in each lacuna, there is an osteocyte. That osteocytes, what they're doing when they're maturing, meaning when they're osteoblast and they're developing, they're creating that driveway that I just explained. When they're creating that, they're clever because they know that once they have this, they cannot get nutrients. So they have to build a connection before that. That's why if you pay attention here, through those spaces, they increases their plasmic, like a cytoplasmic extension. Those cytoplasmic extension create those narrow channels. Those narrow channels or narrow canals are called canaliculus. Canaliculus is the singular, canaliculi is plural. So canaliculi, they created, and through that canaliculi, they have their cytoplasmic extension. And what they're doing at the extension, they're catching the blood vessels so that they can collect the nutrients, they can get rid of the waste products, and then they distribute among themselves. So they literally created a social network outside them. That's how they look like. So a couple of names now. So lacuna is the space, canaliculus is the singular, canalicula is the plural. That's the narrow channels where the cytoplasmic processes are for the mature osteocyte. Osteocyte is the mature bone cell, the lead in the lacuna. And this yellow ring, the concrete ring that they create, concrete by the way, my example, that ring they created, those are called lamella. Lamellae is the plural. Lamella is the concentric ring of the bone chemicals. So if you look at the entire structure, this is how it looks like at the center, called central canal or Haversian canal. Then osteocytes is sitting in the lacuna. Lamella is the bone matrix, the ring bone matrix, canaliculi, those narrow channels, cytoplasmic processes that reach through the canaliculi. Then there is another type of canal. They go this way. So Haversian canal is this way, the central canal, and they go horizontal. That's why this is vertical. This is horizontal canal, or sometimes called perforating or Volkmann canal. Perforating or Volkmann canal. Let me give you the example right here. This is the Haversian canal, the center. This is the perforating and Volkmann canal, the one that goes like a diagonal or sideways. Okay, that's the perforating or Volkmann canal. So in a bone, these are the nutrient channels. They're everywhere. They're everywhere so that all the bone cells can get the nutrients and can get rid of the waste product, because bone cells, they are confined in a space. So once they mature, they're not going to divide and make more bone cells. So that is the structure of a osteon. So osteon is basically known as the unit of a compact bone microscopic structure. Sometimes it is also known as Haversian system. That the basic functional and structural unit of the mature compact bone. Haversian system, that's another name of osteon. Haversian system, name of a scientist. Haversian system, okay? So that's what an osteon looks like. And you can look under the microscope, the same structure. Here in this case, this is like a regular microscope structure. These are electron microscope structure. The last cell, now the last cell that we mentioned right here, osteoclast. So what osteoclast is very interesting. osteo means bone, so it's something to do with the bone, but they don't come from these cells. Remember, this is coming from this one. This is the mature version of that one. But they have no relationship to this. This came from a totally different group of cells. This actually developed from the same bone marrow cells that gives rise to blood cells. So osteoclast, all those called osteoclasts, but they don't come from the same stem cell of the bone. They come from where the blood is produced. In NP2, you're going to learn where the blood cells come from. They come from the same cell line. But why we call them osteoclasts? Because they live in the bone. They are in the bone cells. Now what they do, I'll give you an example, understand this. You see that based on my previous example. So what they do, they slowly release acid-like substances. And what acid does, we learned that. What acid does, it takes away inorganic salt from the bone. It takes away inorganic salt from the bone. See that? Bone dissolving cells, meaning this slowly takes away calcium from the bone, which is important. Now why? This is why. Because calcium ion is extremely important for muscle contraction and many other activity of the body. So body, in their blood, they have to maintain a calcium ion concentration. And calcium, where you get it from? There is only one source, food. We don't make calcium. Body does not make calcium. They get it from food. So when your muscle need calcium, you can say, hey, now let me drink milk because my muscle needs, my heart will stop. You can't do that. So what do you have to do? We have to get the calcium prior in your day-to-day food and then keep in a reservoir. Bone is your reservoir. Bone is the storage for calcium. Bone store calcium. So from the storage, you have to take it slowly whenever you need. That's osteoclast. The osteoclast is doing that job. So now pay attention to the osteoblast, the one that is developing. They take the calcium from the blood. Let's say you eat food has calcium, body absorbs that, it's in the blood. So from the blood, osteoblast with a B, osteoblast, take them and put it in the bone. Osteoclast, they take from the bone, they add it to the blood when body needs it. So osteoblast and osteoclast, you see that they have a opposite relationship. So osteoblast is taking calcium from the blood to the bone. Osteoclast is from the bone to the blood, whenever you need. And this whole thing is controlled by hormones. So when you do ANP2, when you learn ANP2 in endocrine system, you're going to learn there are hormones that control this activity. So for example, when you take away more calcium, meaning your osteoclast is more active, then your bone will lose more calcium. So your bone density will go down. Sometimes we call that like osteoporosis. So your bone will be more porous, and that's happened. So those are hormonal imbalances that can cause this. Okay, so this is basically the chemical composition and microscopic structure of the bone. Okay, so this lecture, you should observe it a couple of times, watch them a couple of times, write notes, and read from my slide or from the book, that make sure you know the chemical composition of the bone as well as the microscopic structure in detail. By the way, the last one I just forgot to mention, for osteoclast, when they take away calcium from the bone, that phenomena is called resorption of bone. Resorption of bone. You can find the terminology not in the slide, but in the book. Resorption of bone. That phenomena is called resorption of bone. Okay, so you now know the chemical composition of bone in detail, inorganic and organic, and 1/3 organic, 2/3 inorganic. Make sure you know those components, and microscopic structure of the compact bone. Their functional unit is called osteon or Haversian system, and its detail. Thank you.